Hello all and welcome back for another walkthrough video. Today we're taking a look at some space racers. That was the prompt for this month, and we got 4 submissions, so let's jump right into it. First one we're going to take a look at is my submission. This is the SR714, which is a very simple and minimalist design. Decided to go for just having the absolute bare minimum that I think a space racer would need, and that is a space racer for short distance high maneuverability challenges. In order to do this, I decided to go for an entirely hydrogen-based design. The ion thrusters and batteries are very heavy, so they tend to make your ship a little bit more sluggish than the hydrogen. Along with that, I gave this thing 2 gyroscopes so that when you are inside it, you can whip around at a comfortable speed. I didn't make it crazy fast, but you can turn faster than you need to with what acceleration you have to work with. Also, speaking of acceleration, it has almost equal acceleration in every direction, so that when you are flying around, you can bank and turn, and it feels pretty comfortable. You don't have to turn your backside towards whatever direction you want to slow down in or speed up in. In fact, the forwards-facing thrust is slightly less than the thrust in all the other directions, which might not make a whole lot of sense when you're just drag racing or something, but when you're doing tight turns, it actually makes a lot of sense to have at least as much thrust in every other direction so you don't end up smacking into things. Makes it drive a little bit more like a car or something, which I think feels really good and natural for a human being to be racing in. So that's what I decided to go for with mine. It has, for power, it only has 2 small batteries. It has no power production of its own, no hydrogen productions of its own. So once it runs out, it has to go into a pit stop and get a recharge on hydrogen and battery power. Hopefully, because this vehicle is entirely hydrogen-based, we won't have to do the recharging very often. And I really like the way the lights came out on this one. I decided to go for like massive surround lighting with these side bits here. That way, whenever I am close to an asteroid or one of these loops, I can see the walls and I can navigate very easily wherever I am and wherever I'm going. Because this vehicle is entirely hydrogen-based, that does mean that it will work on all planets and all moons. And because its thrust is the same pretty much in every direction, it doesn't matter which way you are facing, you're going to be able to hover. I also decided to give this vehicle some small bumpers in the front so that if you do have a non-critical crash into something, you are going to survive. If you hit a little bit too hard, of course your cockpit will get destroyed along with yourself. But of course, if all you care about is racing, you can probably do that in a creative world. And if you want to, I have decided to make an entire color palette of these racers. This is going to be on the workshop as a single grid so that it's easy for you to download and load into your world very quickly so that you can race with your friends. The next vehicle we're going to take a look at is the YH6 Pastel Pushdriver by SaylemVFM. This is a completely different take from what I had on a space racer. It is entirely ion and prototech based. You can see it whips around real fast. It has 2 prototech gyros inside there and lots of forward thrust, but not a whole lot of thrust in other directions, so almost more of a drag racer. Or I suppose if you're going long distance racing between different asteroids, you don't have to turn fast, but you do want to accelerate and you do want to be able to be out in space for extended periods of time. So maybe this is a racer for going between like a moon and a planet, or different moons or different planets even. Looks fairly cozy. You are sitting in this like a racing motorcycle or something. I love how the cockpit is kind of situated. It actually uses a subgrid to get you in there. There's a lot of cool details that go into this one. If we pull the top off here and look inside, you can see that these back thrusters are actually on subgrids, and they're using event controllers to determine when they turn on and turn off. Kind of a neat feature. Definitely more high-tech than my design. We've got the protect gyros in here, protect thrusters, giant reactor, and then we also have batteries too, because I bet this takes a lot of power with all the ion and prototech thrusters. So we got batteries up front there, big thrusters on the sides. Pretty cool design. I love the paint job as always. The pink is always a little bit wild, but it's pretty fun to look at. Even though I don't think this is what it was really designed for, I'm going to take it for a spin around the course just to show you how it handles. At least in a confined setup. You pretty much have to face the direction you want to turn because the primary thrust is in the forwards direction. but with a little bit of practice, you can actually fly this somewhat around the course. Going through this asteroid is going to be a bit, impossible, I think, but you get the idea. It's not terrible. I think with practice, you could definitely make this work even on a confined course like this one, because it does have pretty darn good forwards acceleration. Overall, I think this is a pretty cool build, but I do want to give a little bit of feedback here in regard to the airtightness. I did notice that your cockpit is not airtight, and there are two reasons for that. Even though you have this cool setup here, which is airtight, and makes me believe that you intended the cockpit to be airtight, there's a couple things that you got a little bit confused on, I think. First of all, these triangular windows are not airtight in any way. So on both sides, you can see right there that triangular window in the background. That is not airtight. So your air is escaping there. And then second of all, there's something that's a little bit harder to explain, but basically your cockpit inside there, in order to fit inside this cool shaped dome, you have it on a subgrid, and you decided to put the air vent on the subgrid. But that air vent, as you can see, will not know if this dome is airtight, because subgrids can't tell what the airtightness situation is relative to anything but themselves. So like a single grid, like not including subgrids, not including anything else, only ever knows if it's in gravity, so like in atmosphere, or if it itself is creating an airtight zone. That is why ships inside hangars will not know if the hangar is airtight. They're separate grids, and they don't check to see if grids nearby are creating airtightness at all. That's just a crazy calculation that they don't want to deal with, I don't think, and so they just don't do it. So that air vent is never going to know that your cockpit is airtight, even if it was airtight, which it isn't. So the way you have to fix this, or the way I fixed it, is really simple. You just change the triangular windows to full-size rectangular windows, as you can see here. That will make the dome actually airtight, but then as you can see, this air vent will not know that, because it cannot know that. So you need to have an air vent on your main grid. I snuck one back there. I just replaced one of your conveyors with an air vent block. And now because this is airtight, you can see that when I jump in the cockpit, I will actually get high oxygen and I will be warm. And just to prove that that is an issue with the original design here, let's jump in that. And you can see that I don't have oxygen and I am freezing. So easy fix. And I just wanted to point out how you could make that to make this vehicle just a little bit better. Our next submission is the Space Racer by PVT, and it is a combination of hydrogen, ion thrusters, and prototech thrusters. Also a relatively high-tech design, lots of forwards thrust with the prototech thrusters. Its braking thrust is a little bit augmented with the ion thrusters, and then it's just hydrogen thrust in every other direction, and it maneuvers fairly well. See, going through our course here, it maneuvers a little bit worse than mine, but certainly better than the second one we looked at, because it has a lot more side thrust, and it is of course using hydrogen, which is pretty darn good for maneuverability. Looking in the control panel here, we can see that it has a ton of gyroscopes, a large tank, a large reactor right here, and then a few small reactors scattered about for power. It is also fully piped together so that it works in survival, which is always a nice feature to have. All of them so far have been that way, so I like to see that. And I like how this is all kind of minimalist armor. This is kind of the look that I usually go for too, though they have a completely different take on it, completely different style. I like the black and gold. Makes for kind of a cool looking ship. Lots of cool little details here and there. Some of the rounded corners and blocks. Oh, look at this. I like these little flaps that are there. It's kind of cool. Every time I look at this one, I see something new in the details. I think this is actually a very balanced space racer, because it has the hydrogen, so it can maneuver well when it needs to. But then it also has ion and protech, so that it can go long distance and do a little more endurance projects. And let's check if it has O2. It does have O2 production, and because it has the reactors, it has its own power production. So it can refuel itself, theoretically. If you're in a really long race, or you have to stop by an asteroid or something to refuel, if you build this in creative, this ship can sustain itself. And in case you're wondering, yes, it absolutely can fly just fine on a planet. For feedback on this one, I honestly think it's just a great design. I don't have any criticisms. Yeah, just a different style than I usually go for. The dark colors look really good. They probably look better with higher resolution settings and higher graphic settings, but that's why I usually go for slightly lighter tones, but I'm sure this looks really good regardless. The last ship we're going to take a look at is the Space Racer Limo by Zoboomafoo, which once again is a very creative take on this month's theme. Let's see if we can get this thing through the course at all. I'm not sure how this is going to go, and then we'll take a look around the inside and everything. It does have one hydrogen thruster to go forwards, and then the rest is ion, and it's just these dinky little side ion thrusters, so maneuverability is definitely not a thing in this vehicle. However, it is a luxury race vehicle, so maybe if you're just hanging out and you're going to watch the racers, maybe this is the vehicle you'd want to go in. It's like a souped up limo. Let's jump out and look around the inside while this thing tries to slow down. You got the two flight seats up front. Decent view around. In the back here we have a whole bunch of lounge chairs. Is this thing airtight? I closed the door. I mean, it's probably airtight, but I don't see an air vent in here anywhere. We'll take a look into that, but pretty cool vehicle. It is mostly ion thrusters, with the exception of the one hydrogen thruster on the back, and then it has a whole bunch of atmospheric thrusters, which is interesting. Makes me think that we can fly this down on a planet. Let's try it. Well, it does fly on the planet with just atmospheric thrusters. That is kind of cool. I wonder if we can actually get to space with just the few atmospheric and ion thrusters we have. Should I try it? It's gonna take me forever. Okay, let's do it. Well, I have one hydrogen thruster. Wait a second. Is this all it needs actually to get to space? Well, we are facing pretty much vertical now, and we are not losing speed, which means this can transition from the planet to space and vice versa, as long as it is not loaded down with anything. That is pretty cool. Taking a quick look under the hood on this thing reveals a whole bunch of gyroscopes, some batteries up front here. Of course, the engines are a way to produce power as well. Some small hydrogen tanks up front, and then this big space in the back looks like it just contains a whole bunch of large hydrogen tanks. Let's check this last little bit. It didn't quite get here. Looks like just some conveyors, and then our thruster. Back inside, if we look at the control panel, we can see that it does have O2H2 generation of its own. Because of the hydrogen engines, it has power production of its own, which is very nice. It has a big connector on the bottom. And if we jump out of the seat here and replace one of these blocks in the floor with an air vent, you can see that it is in fact airtight. Look at those nice green lights. So you have a cozy oxygenated interior if you want it. That is going to be it for this walkthrough video. I hope you enjoyed and got a little bit of inspiration. If you want to get involved in future events, definitely head over to the Discord. But for now, have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.